Good afternoon, 7th grade. It is Monday, April 20th, 2020. Glad you could join us again for another week of world history. Today's lesson is very brief. It is on page 387. In fact, this section is only one page. This is section 24.5, known as the period of detente. And we're going to go through it, and you have a section review on page 388. Not a whole lot of questions, so I want you to do all of them. So let's dive in. Remember, this is the era of the Cold War, mainly a war of, instead of with actual soldiers, it's a war of ideology, philosophy and religion, American freedom versus Russian and Chinese communism. And so this section is about what's called the period of detente. After the Vietnam War, as you remember, Vietnam was taken over by the communists, mainly because politicians in America didn't really know how to wage a proper war in Vietnam, causing American troops to pull out and letting the country follow communism. So after the war, America entered a period of detente with the Russians. The word detente means a lessening of tension or hostility between nations. Instead of fighting each other, we were trying to work out our differences through talks, treaties, compromises, etc. The United States tried to use bargaining power and treaty making to deal with the Soviet Union and China. The age of detente was symbolized by President Nixon's goodwill tour of China in 1972 and subsequent opening of trade relations with China. Detente was an attempt to build cordial or friendly relations with the communist world. The U.S. government concentrated on disarmament or a laying down of weapons treaties with the communists rather than maintaining powerful military defenses. Warnings to the West. In 1975, the famous Russian writer Alexander Solzhenitsyn, imprisoned in the Soviet Union for exposing the cruelties of communism, was exiled to the West. He warned Americans not to be fooled into thinking that detente would really bring peace. Solzhenitsyn said, "The communist ideology is to destroy your social order. This has been their aim for 125 years, and it has never nor will it ever change. Only the methods have changed a little. When there is detente, peaceful coexistence, and trade, they will still insist the ideological war must continue. And what is ideological war? It is a concentration of hatred, a continued repetition of the oath to destroy the Western world." Detente in Communist China. The death of Mao Zedong in 1976 precipitated a power struggle between Mao's widow, Chen Qing, and the Communist Party's former General Secretary, Deng Xiaoping, also spelled Deng Xiaoping. Mao's widow wanted to continue the Cultural Revolution, but she overstepped her power when she demanded complete obedience to herself rather than to the party. Tang placed her on public trial and sentenced her to prison. The dangers of detente became evident when Communist China was admitted to the UN in 1971. In 1978, the United States formally recognized Communist China as the only legal government of China. Remember, Chiang Kai-shek was in Taiwan, and for a while America recognized two Chinas, but in 1978, we disregarded Chiang Kai-shek's free China and regarded only the communist regime. It dismayed many U.S. citizens to end the American commitment to freedom to the Republic of China or Taiwan. The communist Chinese leader, Deng Xiaoping, agreed to allow foreign investment in China. So he essentially gave away the recognition of the free Chinese for essentially another market to sell American goods. Not a good thing for us to do, really. Appeasement of the communism. The United States, the major world power at that time, and other free nations did not take firm, aggressive action to stop the spread of communism immediately after World War II. They should have heeded the wisdom of Winston Churchill, who clearly saw the aims of Stalin even before World War II began or was over. He urged President Roosevelt to send the Allies to conquer all of Germany before the Russians could take it. But President Roosevelt said, "No, lest we upset and offend the Russians." Western leaders dismissed the advice of Winston Churchill. Instead, the United States pursued a policy of containment throughout most of the Cold War. Eventually, containment lapsed into an even weaker policy of detente, which aimed at relaxing the tensions between the Soviet Union and the United States. By 1979, American foreign policy was in shambles. With the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan, the United States could do little in response because of its policy of peaceful coexistence with the Soviets And that concludes this section over detente. Make sure you do the section review on page 388. It's not a whole lot, it's just 3 questions, very brief. And I'll see you guys tomorrow.